Fear of the unknown is a very real thing. But what happens when the unknown looks familiar? Today I'm going to share some stories with you of humanoid encounters. Number 1. 3 months ago, I was camping with a friend in a very remote part of Northern California. I'm a massive wilderness junkie. I've been camping all my life, and I spend much of my free time hiking, rock climbing, and hunting. A buddy of mine, who also enjoys the outdoors, wanted to head up to the Sierras for the weekend and asked me to go with him. It was our second night, and we were sitting by the fire. We weren't staying at a campsite, but we had hiked about 10 miles from our cars to a clearing with a beautiful view and had stayed once before. It was around 10 p.m. My buddy was tired and went to sleep in his tent. I wanted to stay up for a while, and about 45 minutes after he went to bed, I saw this object coming from the valley below. It was a basic flying saucer shape, with multiple circular lights rotating around the edges that changed colors over and over. I was absolutely shocked. I watched it for maybe 15 seconds, then decided I had to wake him up so he could see it and wouldn't think that I was crazy. I stood, and when I looked back toward it, the thing was gone. I called out his name, and that's when everything got really fucked up. I didn't hear my own voice when I called out. Everything was completely silent. I could move my eyes around, but couldn't move my body. I remember seeing the fire had completely frozen, and everything looked like a picture, like time had stopped or something. There was a flash of light, and I blacked out. I woke up later, just as the sun was starting to rise. I was outside laying in the dirt, shivering next to the fire that had long gone out. I felt like I had been drugged, totally in a haze. I sluggishly yelled out my friend's name a couple of times, and he came out of the tent. He was really confused, to say the least. I tried to explain what happened, but my memory was really foggy, and I just couldn't articulate it. We left within 30 minutes, and I was totally silent on the car ride back, falling in and out of sleep for 7 hours. He dropped me off at my house, and I passed out for basically an entire day. A few weeks later, I was messing around with an amp, and it released this static sound when I unplugged my guitar. For some reason, this sound somehow triggered my memory, and I remembered everything. When I came back into consciousness, I was suspended laterally in this circular mechanism in a position very similar to Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. These clear, glass-like, shackle-type restraints were holding me in place. I was completely nude, and standing above me were 3 of your typical aliens. They were around 4 feet tall, and wearing white spandex-like suits. 2 were just standing there observing, and the other one was extracting blood from a vein under my armpit with this weird-looking syringe. Although they didn't show any real reaction, I could still tell that they were surprised that I was awake. I couldn't move at all, except for my eyes and lips. I was absolutely terrified. In a sort of fight-or-flight mode, my heart pounding from the influx of adrenaline. I can't even begin to tell you how scared I was, but also felt total rage. I wanted to kill them, wanted to rip out this device and completely destroy them. My brain went totally primal. Just an animal instinct, and I could just tell that they could sense my anger because they all stepped back. I'm 6'3" and 185 pounds, and I was hoping I looked as threatening as possible, which is silly because I was totally paralyzed and therefore completely harmless. 2 of them disappeared from my view, and presumably left the room. The other one was just staring at me, void of any emotion. I wanted so badly to shut my eyes, but I forced myself to stare right back at it, trying my hardest not to blink. Then the 2 others came back, and now they weren't alone. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes. Standing between them were 2 very tall, very human-looking beings. A male and a female. They looked like Norse gods, with bright golden hair and massive eyes. The males were dark blue and the females were violet. I suppose that they are what the UFO community refers to as Nordics. This was quite bizarre to me. My family descended from Sweden, and I am very Nordic looking. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the works. I know this is cliche, but I heard a feminine voice in my head. For some reason, I could understand what she was telling me, although it wasn't like she was saying anything in English. She told me something like, "Be calm, you're not in danger." I relaxed and asked her what they wanted with me. She said they were just checking up on me. I practically blacked out after hearing that. I asked her what she meant. She said they had saved me when I first came into being. I immediately knew exactly what she was talking about. I was born practically 2 months premature. My mother was horribly sick during labor. We both had fevers of 104. The strange thing is, the doctors had absolutely no idea what was wrong with us. I was given 2 spinal taps, my mother 3. I spent 4 nights in that bubble housing in ICU. There was a decent chance I was going to die. Then one day I started getting better and made a full recovery. The doctors were very worried that the whole ordeal might have permanently damaged my body and possibly my brain, but I was totally fine. I asked her, "Why did you save me?" This time I hear a deep male voice stating that this is a conversation for a later time. I asked them if they are human. He said no. I was confused considering that they looked quite human. I asked him if a man had come from them. He said yes, that they had come here 200,000 years ago and created mankind by combining their DNA with that of our primate ancestors. I wanted to know why they looked especially similar to me more than other humans. He stated that many males of their kind found female humans attractive and mated with them. This directly passed on some of their physical features to the Nordic people. I wanted to know more, but they declined and said it was time for me to go back. I blacked out instantly and woke up by the extinguished campfire, clothes on and shivering. I understand that this sounds absolutely ridiculous and very impossible, but it happened. I don't know what to do. I've been completely lost since the encounter, but I already feel a bit of relief after posting my story here. Number 2. I never had an experience myself, but do believe my girlfriend when she told me about this unknown humanoid that she encountered. On a Friday night, she and I were at a friend's house and decided to leave around 1 a.m. It's very foggy outside, being that we live near a river and creeks in rural Illinois. She goes to the gas station on her way home to the rural town where we both live, about a block away from each other. I get home and don't hear from her for a bit, until she calls me very shaken and crying. She says on her drive home, she saw something crouched in the road on the right side. It looked to be fairly small, possibly a child. She rolled her window down and asked if they were okay, and she got no answer, only continued sobbing. She pulls over and gets out of the car and walked up to whatever this was and attempted to ask if it needed any help. The thing stands up on 2 feet at over 6 feet tall and lets out a god-awful screech and runs off the road into some pretty dense woods near a tributary of the Caskia River. She can't say if it was a boy or a girl, but she can say she's never heard anything like that before. She's pretty messed up from the whole experience. Number 3. This happened in the middle of the night at my mom's house some years back in Northern California. I was asleep on the floor in the living room. Next to the living room is a room that can be seen through 2 large windows and French doors. We call it the middle room. Next to that was my mom and stepdad's bedroom. The light in the middle of the room was left on, partly dimmed. I woke up and saw 3 short gray aliens walking around in the middle room. They were about 5 feet tall, had long, skinny arms and were wearing dark-colored jumpsuits. The arms stood out to me the most because of how thin they were, with no muscle tone like you would see in a human. The eyes looked solid black and were larger than a human's, though not as large as shown in some depictions. I don't remember about the nose and mouth or the other features. They were too small and not noticeable. I don't remember any details about the hands. I was able to sit up part way as I was watching them, but I had no energy to do anything else. They didn't seem to notice that I was watching them. Within a couple of minutes, I fell back to sleep. I'm guessing that they transmit something to keep everyone passed out, but sometimes it doesn't always work 100%. Here's the kicker. In the morning, my mom walked in and said the aliens were there the night before. I then told her that I saw them too, and I asked her how many there were and what they looked like. Her description matched mine. She's had other alien encounters, but this was the first time she had a witness. Number 4. This happened to my brother, not me. But I remember the night it happened, and it still gives me chills to this day. I can still remember the sound of him running up the stairs and screaming, "No, no, no." The look on his face, and him shaking uncontrollably. It happened about 15 years ago, and this is exactly how he still explains the story to this day. Our parents' old house had a den, which had a few couches and a bathroom and a TV and a laundry room. My brother and I had all of our video game stuff down in the den, our computers and stuff like that. It was basically a room that we only used. One late night after playing video games, we both took a couch and watched a little TV before calling it a night. I fell asleep, woke up later and went up to my room, leaving my brother still sleeping on the other couch. The couch he was lying on is against a wall. While lying back on the couch, you could see the TV, and if you looked straight over your feet, you would see a very small hallway and the bathroom door, which was open at this time. We had a dog, a smaller Springer Spaniel. My brother said he woke up to a noise in the bathroom. The lights were all off in the house, only street lamps and moonlight preventing it from being pitch black. He told me that the noise was a growl, and he knew it wasn't the dog, but in the moment, he so hoped it was. He said he quickly shot up from the laying down position and could clearly see a small black shadow running in circles on the bathroom floor. The bathroom floor was tile, and you would definitely be able to hear the dog's claws as they touched the floor, especially at the speed it was running in circles. But my brother said he had heard nothing. He then called out the dog's name, hoping that it was her, and that it would stop doing whatever it was doing. "Candy!" he yelled. As soon as whatever it heard that, it stopped immediately. He then heard what he explains a gurgly growl. At the point he knew what it was. It wasn't the dog. Whatever it was started growing larger and larger, soon taking up the whole bathroom with its size. It's funny now, but my brother explained that the creature looked like Doomsday from the DC comic. Not to discredit the whole story by saying he looked like a comic book villain, but to a 14-year-old, this was his best comparison to what he saw. He said that he didn't remember how he was able to move so quickly, but he ran up both flights of stairs, screaming, "No, no, no." He woke up the whole house. Sometimes it still keeps him up all these years later. He was never visited by the creature again. Me, being into this sort of thing, was never able to find something that could possibly be what he saw. It had to be supernatural. It was in the house and then disappeared. My only explanation, it was a demon of some sort. Any help would be appreciated. Number 5. When I was camping with my family several years ago, my father and I were out walking in the dark with a flashlight when he heard some kind of chirping noise, like a person doing a shitty imitation of a bird call. We stopped and shined our flashlights up into the trees. The beam landed on something, maybe 3 feet tall, standing up. Humanoid, crouching with his hands holding onto the branches. It was hairless and very pale. It was pretty much white. Its head was abnormally large, with 2 huge eyes and bat-like ears. We only saw it for a split second because my dad jerked the flashlight away when he first saw it, and when we tried to find it again, with the flashlight, it was gone. Without a trace, I asked my dad if he had seen it, and he had, and we were both very perplexed by it. When I've told other people this story, they speculate that it could have been an owl or some other animal. But my dad and I are both fairly experienced outdoorsmen, and we've never seen anything that looked like that before or since. I went back and double-checked with my mother, and she's fairly certain this took place at a campground near Stanley, Idaho, at Lola Creek Campground. She also told me that we left early because there was something moving around the campsite at night that spooked my dad, which I only learned just now. Number 6. So this encounter happened around 2 years ago while I was living with my parents in Texas. At the time, I was waking up from a short nap and did not see it as anything unusual. I just figured it was some kind of partially dream or something like that. I was napping on my bed. At the time I had a futon, so it wasn't too far off the ground. In the middle of the day, I can't remember the exact time to save my life. As I opened my eyes, I saw for only a second the image of some white humanoid creature kneeling on its haunches looking at me. It couldn't have been that tall, since its eyes were only inches above my bed. I could see the top of its knees, which it was resting its head against. While I can't remember many details about its face, I knew, somehow, that it wasn't entirely right. For lack of a better term, I can't remember if it even had any hair on its head, or the color of its eyes. But I can remember that its skin was very pale, and it looked as if it were just skin and bones. I don't know why the image of this creature was so vivid, even though I only saw it for a second, but even to this day it stands out. I've only recently been able to give a name to this thing since I saw a post on this sub describing these types of creatures as crawlers. Number 7. This happened in 1985, about 4 years before people started getting internet access. We never heard of shadow people or anything remotely similar, and if we wanted to learn about something, we went to the public library, and I took every opportunity to read about ghosts, vampires, demons, and you name it. I grew up in a very negative and angry home, so in retrospect, I can see how something like this came to be in my own home. A friend and I were hanging out at my house, and we decided to leave. I was 2 years under the driving age, but Tom had his license in his own car. We left the house through the kitchen door and into the backyard, from which you make an immediate right turn to go through the gate, and you're standing on the driveway. Even though nobody else was home, we typically didn't bother locking the kitchen door because it was a safe, quiet neighborhood, and the door was behind a gate. We went to his car, and as I got in, he remembered that he had forgotten something inside. I waited in the car as he went back through the gate and into the kitchen. The kitchen was what I believe is referred to as a shotgun kitchen. When you went through the door, you could see the whole length of the kitchen and down the entire hallway that ended in the bathroom. Down that hall, the doorway to my bedroom was the first door on the left, and immediately across was the doorway to the den where the TV and sofa were. No more than 10 seconds after he went in, Tom came flying through the gate faster than I thought he could move. His skin had gone pale and he was thoroughly terrified. He jumped into the car, turned it over, and hauled ass out of my driveway, and he wouldn't answer any questions about what the hell was going on. He told me that when he went into the kitchen, movement down the hall caught his attention. He said he saw something come out of my room, cross the hall, and enter the den. He said it was shaped like a person, and it reminded him of a ghost, except that instead of being white, it was black, and that's what scared the shit out of him. I had known Tom for a couple of years prior to this, and being a liar of any kind was just not part of him. He just wasn't the type of person to make things up. I lived in that house for 4 more years and never saw anything like that. But Tom never set foot in it again. He moved away a couple of years after this happened, and we lost touch. But a year or 2 after we moved, he tracked me down and showed up one night, while me and some friends were shooting pool and drinking beers. I asked him about it, and he stood by his original account. And I, for one, believe him. Alright guys, if you've made it this far, make sure you smash that like button. Be sure to subscribe, comment, share with all your friends. I tried something a little different today. If you guys enjoyed that, make sure to let me know. If you want to send your personal stories to me, the email will be in the description. First 100 subscribers are entered into a giveaway. You can comment and let me know what stories you all want to hear. Until then, stay safe.